Hi friends! Today's video is all about coffee cans and what you can make with them. And as always, I hope you enjoy the show. Here's my inspiration pieces. I saw this and then I saw this herb little garden here and I thought how cute. So I found these labels online, printed them up, cut them out. It was for rosemary, dill, and sage because I actually do use those in my kitchen. And then I'm showing you here, I cut my finger. I drew a little happy face on there. And then I'm using these 3 coffee cans. So I'm using some Oops paint, or the paint that they make mistakes with from Home Depot. And at that time, it was only 50 cents. I think it's gone up, but it's a great way to buy affordable paint that's quality because it usually has primer in it. So I just did my first coat on the cans with that paint, which was like a latex paint with primer. And then I ended up wanting to antique the labels just a little bit. So I used some watered down brown paint. And then while it was wet, I tore the edges and then I dried them with a blow dryer, set them aside. And then I wanted to distress my cans a little bit. So I did some white because I knew that this wasn't green enough. I thought when it dried, it would be green enough and it wasn't. So I grabbed some green paint from Apple Barrel Paint and then I just dry brush that on and I take a paper towel and kind of smear it so that we get more green because I thought that would just be pretty outdoors, you guys. So I take some Mod Podge, of course, and I'm going to apply these labels. So I'll mention a couple times throughout this video how you have to use Mod Podge for cans like this with grooves. You just need a wetter adhesive because you have to kind of push it down into the grooves to get the label to, adhere. Well, I don't like to lay it on top of the grooves because then there's an area of air where if you touch it, you could puncture it and you'll tear the label. So I do like to push it down into the little grooves there. You can see them on the coffee can. And then once these were dry, I just used brown paint to distress them. I did end up drilling holes at the bottom of them and I grew some herbs. I actually grew them and used them and it was awesome. I think it's a great idea and a cute way to get a little herbal garden for free in your yard. Let me know what you think. Of course, you're going to need a coffee can and some cardboard for this one. And here's a free label. It'll be down below in my description box. And I used this basket. You could also use a Dollar Tree basket. They do sell baskets there for that part. I painted this with white primer at the time. It was water-based Kills. You could take it out and spray paint it. You could also use chalk paint, but you're going to want to seal it with Mod Podge afterwards if you do that because it'll chip off. I turned the can upside down, traced the circle onto the cardboard, and then I cut out 5 cardboard pieces, so 5 circles, and I just glued them on top of each other. I took some of this buffalo check black and white fabric and I just traced a circle out and then used the spray adhesive from Dollar Tree to glue it on top of the cardboard. Now, I was super excited about trying this adhesive from Dollar Tree, but honestly, Mod Podge will work just fine. They both worked, but I just want to let you know that was you don't have to do that. If you have Mod Podge, you can absolutely just go ahead and use Mod Podge. And then I gave it a quick blow dry so that I could keep moving. And I did use hot glue to glue the edges of the fabric around, the cardboard. And it won't matter if it sinks in a little bit, you just get it to stick. And then I just used regular school glue and glued some paper. This was like a fake distressed antique paper that I used just to cover the bottom. You could cover it with more fabric. You could absolutely take and cut smaller cardboard circles to make it so the lid doesn't fall off and then cover that with fabric. And then, you can make it however you want. Here's the great hack though, is you just take one of these little reeds from the basket. That's why I said the Dollar Tree baskets would work too. I actually bought some reeds. You can buy this online on Amazon. So I have a big roll of it, but this is a hack. You can just, if you don't want to invest $14 or $16, I think it's $16 now. For the reed, you can just take and use a little piece of a basket, like an old Easter basket, and then you glue that along the edges and you get a beautiful professional clean edge for your coffee can lid. So this is an extra little knob that I had. They sell knobs like this occasionally at Dollar Tree. They actually had some really pretty ones the other day. They were crystal. I bought 3 of those. And I just painted that black. And then I went ahead and glued that on the top of the lid. And look at what an awesome lid that makes. So now we're going to cut out the imagery and I'm just going to use some more Mod Podge to glue it on the front of the can. And then I'll distress my can a little bit around the edges, pop that lid on, and we have a super cute storage container for whatever you want. And we're done. For the next one, of course, I painted it white, and after that, I did antique parchment from Apple Barrel Paint. It is an acrylic paint, but we're going to seal it up, so it will be okay. That's another free printable for you. And for this one, I just decided to use a ruler and get straight lines and cut it out in a perfectly rectangle label instead of tearing the edges. And then I did the Mod Podge, of course. I was really generous with it, stuck it down in the grooves, and we applied the label using Mod Podge. Now, when you can't use heat, irons, and things like that to make sure there's no wrinkles, and you're trying to Mod Podge down on uneven surfaces like this, the wet, damp sponge is still the best trick. It should be damp, not wet, because you'll make your ink run, and you just press as hard as you can and be patient, and all the wrinkles will come out. I took this outside, I sealed it up with this Mod Podge spray, and then I took this heart that was from Valentine's Day, and I just painted it white. I distressed it a little bit on the edges. Went ahead and grabbed some Spanish moss just to fill in the bottom, and then I start filling it up with all of these roses, and all the roses are from Dollar Tree. Aren't they gorgeous? The boxwood is down below in my description box, but I made this pretty bow using Dollar Tree ribbon right here. It was like a little gingham print with the lace, tied it with twine, glued it on the top of the heart, and I thought this made such a cute Valentine's decor piece. Let me know what you think. Of course, here's the coffee can, and of course we're going to paint it white. Again, I used primer. Again, you can use spray paint if you want to take it outside. You're going to do the same thing with the cardboard, except this time I used the lid of the coffee can and I traced out 4 of them and glued them all together. Now you can see here one of the circles, I didn't have enough cardboard, so I had cut out another piece of cardboard and glued it on the edge, and as long as it's sandwiched between 2 solid circles, you're fine. It doesn't affect the structural integrity at all. And then I was using joint compound here, but you can take spackling. I actually think spackling is better because it dries faster, and you literally frost it like a cake. Front, back, sides, bottom, everything, and you set it aside to dry. So this is my free printable, and I went ahead and went with a simple square again. I didn't tear the edges. Use Mod Podge to apply the label, and use the sponge trick to stick it down, and then I used Mod Podge to seal the label up, including the entire can. I just took and sealed all the way around because I just felt like this was going to be in my kitchen. I thought if I touch it and stuff, I wanted to be able to wipe it and make it a little bit waterproof, and that works. You can even use a dishwasher Mod Podge, which would be even better. This is a water-based stain that you can get on Amazon. The link will be down below in my description, but antique wax would work perfect for this too. And you just put layers on. I was using a chip brush and it looks like wood grain. And then I blow dried it. Used a cut wood branch. So this one is from Dollar Tree. You can get them from Amazon. I wanted this to look like a pumpkin, so I just stained that too, glued it down with super glue. And here it is, you guys, the final result. For this next project, I am using a Walmart coffee can, and I'm just filing off the back paper. The sticky part's gone, but the back paper was there a little bit, and you can't see it if you file it off, so that's what I did. If you'd like to recreate this project and you don't drink coffee, you can also buy cheap paint cans at hardware stores. You know, they're empty, brand new paint cans. I am using chalk paint by Faux in the color Cottage White, and I gave it 1 coat. And now I'm sealing it with a bit of Mod Podge. I took this funnel outside, spray painted it black, but I do want to cut off the back hook there that hangs the funnels together, so I just used my saw to do that. This blade cuts through plastic as well. And I'll mention ahead of time that I did seal this entire project with a clear varnish when I was all done. After that, I filed the edge to make it nice and smooth, and of course I'm going to touch it up with some black paint so you can't see where I cut. I also decided I wanted to paint the inside of the funnel for this DIY, so I went ahead and did that with the Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. Next, I drew a picture of a snowman face on the front of the can, first in pencil and then in ink. That's always my method of doing it so I can erase. And then I use the ink so it gives a nice border and makes it easier for me to paint inside that border. I am also making this for a friend, by the way. They sent me a picture of the face that they want, and so I'm kind of going by what they sent. So now I'm using some antique wax just to buff this up a little bit, give it some dimension, and make it, look just more real. I think when you add shadows and dimension, they come to life more. They look a little bit more real, and I like that look. You can skip this if you want to. I just think it looks better. And I added some shadow around the eyebrows as well. I also decided to add some shadow on the top of the nose this time instead of the snow. So this little snowman's going to be indoors. And I'm using my method of the pencil again to add the little marks of the carrot. I think pencil looks the most realistic for this part. You can use paint if you want to, but I just find pencil looks really good. I also tried wrapping the berries around the top of this hat, but I didn't like it. I ended up removing it. And now I'm taking some weather stripping. I got this from Amazon, and I am putting it around the edge. Now, this fits perfectly on top of the coffee can as a lid. You do not need to do this part. It's just I have the weather stripping, and I thought it added, it makes it go a little further out on the rim, and it also creates a nice buffer so it's not noisy when you put it down. It's nice and silent, I guess, when you put the lid back on. So I went ahead and added it. Then I glued a little bit of the gingham print ribbon from Dollar Tree onto the rim. I'm adding some of the raffia and just decorating the hat. Now this is another little snowman in case you haven't guessed. I also thought this would have made a super cute scarecrow too. Oh my goodness, or a tin man. If you left the can, like if you spray painted the can and the lid silver and you did it like a tin man. So many possibilities with the funnel and the coffee can. It's so cute. So I added a snowflake. I'm frosting it up, took a permanent marker and ended up edging the bottom and the top. I did call my girlfriend to ask if I could add some pupils and eyelashes because I thought that was so cute. Oh my gosh, her kitchen is beautiful. It's going in her kitchen, she said, and it is brick. She lives in a super old farmhouse that actually has a huge fireplace that goes to the floor. One of those. For this craft, you're going to need a coffee can or a can in your choosing. It can be any can. It doesn't have to be a coffee can. Any can will work. So if you have an extra large can for another food product, that would be fine. So after I did the primer and it dried, I go ahead and apply some apple barrel paint in the color khaki on those lines there. I just took advantage of the lines on the can. Now I'm artificially adding a faux line at the top here because I want the white line at the top not to be so wide. So I just go ahead and add it in there, and I'm just using a tissue for applying the paint. I'm kind of applying it more like a stain. So I'm putting it on and wiping it off. And now I'm cutting out my free printable. Now I'm Mod Podging this label on, and I use a wet sponge and I keep pressing. But the most important thing is that once you get glue on any part of the sponge, you have to move to a clean part or you will accidentally lift your paper up and tear it. So I was frequently stopping and rinsing my sponge out and then going back and doing it again. So it always has to be a fresh, clean sponge. And now I'm going to add some of the Dollar Tree ribbon on top of this lid so that it ties in the rest of my decor. And it came out so, so cute, you guys. For this project, we're going to use a burner cover set from the Dollar Tree and one coffee can. This is the Walmart brand coffee. You can also buy very cheap empty paint containers. I used E6000 glue, and I'm going to glue it for a permanent fix to the bottom of the stovetop cover. Next, I'm going to use a Kleenex and just wipe off any glue that oozed under the rim, and I use my heat gun to dry it completely. I'm using Waverly in the color ink, and I'm giving it one coat of black paint. You're going to give that a quick dry for the next step, and then I did seal this with Mod Podge because I didn't want it to chip off. And I used my heat gun again to give it a quick dry. Next, I cut this ribbon to fit around the bottom of the coffee can, and I'm going to glue it in the back. Now I'm going to cut just a piece of the ribbon off and dovetail two ends and then tie it in a knot and glue it onto the ribbon at the bottom. Next, I just started taking different types of pine and gluing it at the bottom. So I'm just using different thicknesses and different looks just to give it some variety. And I'm using some of this sparkly branch that you can get at the Dollar Tree in their florals to glue to add a little bit of sparkle. And then I'm using this rusted bell that I got from Temu. You can also get it from Amazon really cheap. I'm gluing it in the center, and then I'm just going to put some pine cones around that. At the very top of the bell, I decided to glue some Dollar Tree berries down. And now I'm taking and just adding a little bit of faux snow and frost to the top of this little frosty hat. This is actually a Frosty the Snowman hat tray, and I'm going to use it to put shot glasses of eggnog around for a Christmas buffet I go to every year. It's going to be so cute, I think, on the table. This is such a cute tray to serve eggnog that way. But I was looking at it, and I felt like the pine was just too long. That one totally flew across the room. But I had to cut it down, and it looks a lot better. I think I ended up putting it behind the berries like this. I also moved the little sparkly one too, and I just think it looks so much better. But I frosted up the pine, the berries, and the pine cones to make it look all, snowy and cold for winter. But I think this came up so cute. For this craft, you're going to need a can. I'm using a coffee can because I have a lot of them, a heart shape of some kind, some scrap material, and some buttons or embellishments, whatever you want, some ribbon, just anything that you want to decorate with. I'm going to start by giving this a coat of a very neutral, soft, kind of creamy tan color here. I'm using these little wooden hearts for a template to trace out the heart onto 3 different fabric prints. And I do a total of 3. It's like a plaid, I use burlap, and then I use a cream neutral. Now you're going to take the heart shapes and you're going to hot glue them together, but you're going to leave a little opening because we're going to be stuffing these. You can see me using some polyfiberfill. I purchased the pillows from Walmart. They're about $3.79 where I live, and they come in the center bins. but you get a lot more polyfiber fill in the pillows than you do when you buy polyfiber fill from a fabric store, at least where I live. So get the cheapest deal you can get. You can also just use cotton balls pulled apart as well. And now I'm just decorating them and making them look really, really cute. So you're going to see what I do here. I'm using the Dollar Tree ribbon. I love to cut this ribbon in half. One, because it looks, if you're making small things, it fits better. So you can see it there on the edges. It's already starting to fray a bit. I just love that look. If you don't, you can leave it intact in, one piece, but I love that look. And what you see me tying on there is some mop thread. I pull the mop thread apart. I get the little individual yarn strands, and I love those as well. I think they kind of have a natural curl to them, a wave. And they also are very fuzzy looking, so I just love that look for what I'm going for. And I'm just using some spare buttons that I have. I showed you the Dollar Tree buttons because you can paint those, but I have a lot of spare buttons that I'm probably never going to use, I'm never going to use them. So I decided to go ahead and use them for this craft and just decorate them. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the water-based stain this time and stain these little hearts. And that's what we have when I'm all done. Now back to the coffee can here. I love these Dollar Tree lace doilies. I've had a thing for paper lace doilies since I was a little girl. I just think they're so pretty. I've always wanted to craft with them, but I never really knew what to do. I do have to cut it down a little smaller because it's not going to fit on the top, the outside of the coffee can. It was a little bit too big. And I take some more of that paper I bought from Amazon. It's age paper. This is the striped sheet out of that pack. That's below my description box as well if you want to see what I bought. And now I'm just using my finger to apply the Mod Podge. Sometimes I can't get the look I want with a brush, and I feel like I have more control with my fingers. Let me know how many of you guys do that too. And now I'm taking some spare plastic bags and some old moss that used to be really green, but it's actually going brown, which is what I wanted, and some absolutely beautiful lamb's ear I got at Hobby Lobby. They're gorgeous. It's like the perfect lamb's ear. And I'm using that on the top. And I'm just taking a skewer from the Dollar Tree and poking the material. It's super easy to do because, the end of those skewers are sharp. And I've made a little heart garden, you guys. It's so cute. And since you guys kind of know the drill now, I didn't bother putting the tutorials in, but here's another printable that you can access, and I just glued it on top of a cream colored coffee can and added some florals. It made a super cute Christmas coffee can craft. And here's another great idea for you. This is actually a Dollar Tree pot holder, and I just cut the fabric off. I painted the coffee can black and used tons of Mod Podge and glued the fabric on top, and I thought this came up absolutely beautiful as well. This craft, you're going to need a large can. I'm using a coffee can, some cardboard, and some craft sticks, and either a wine cork or some towering blocks and some sisal rope or twine. It's totally up to you. I was showing you the burnt umber with how much black paint I put in it. I use that often for a stain. I add a little bit of water to it. I added water to this one to make like a watercolor stain on the edge there because this was actually a watercolor bunny print that is free, and it will be down below in my description box. Just click on that and there's a link there. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm tracing a lid, and I end up cutting the lid back about the width of the sisal rope that I'm using. So if you use nautical rope or twine or whatever you're going to do, make sure you account for that in your final measurement. And I end up using 5 layers of cardboard. Once I have those all together, I trim those to make sure they're all even on the edges there, and I'm just going to connect all of them with hot glue. And believe it or not, when these lids are done, this is my 3rd one because I wanted to change it up a little bit. I was getting bored and I was having fun. But they're really heavy when you're done. No matter what method I show you, they're very heavy and they sit on top. So I end up taking some masking tape. I tape those craft sticks together. I don't know why I forgot that. I usually do that, but I started to do them on their own and I thought, what are you doing? It's a great method to tape them together. And see how I'm taking the scissors and kind of nibbling at them? Kudos to my mother for that tip. She actually has dry toenails and she has to cut them where she kind of nibbles with her scissors. That's what she told me one day. And she said, well, that way they won't split. And I thought, ooh, I wonder if that would work with craft sticks. And it does. So thank you to my mother for that. It works beautifully. And now I'm just going to finish it off with a little bit of the antiqued paper that I bought from Amazon and a glue stick. I really love these. Now I chose sisal rope because it smells like sweet hay and kind of has that energy of grass, and there was just something about Easter and baskets and bunnies and grass. They all just kind of go really well, and I was, thought it would be a nice change. You do have to burn off the hairs for a while to get it nice and smooth, but for the edge of the craft sticks, I opt to use the Walmart twine. It's a little thicker than the jute twine at the Dollar Tree, and I'm showing you in real time here how slow I was going, because if you're really careful and slow, you can get a nice clean edge, and it gave it like a graduated edge too, because it's not as thick as the sisal rope. Really pretty in real life, really pretty. And I'm using the towering block using wood glue. Spoke about this many times in my videos, but for those of you that are new, wood glue actually bonds with wood at a molecular level. It is the strongest glue you can use for wood. Super glue is great. I mean, there's a lot of strong glues out there, but if you're looking for one for raw wood, not painted wood, because once you paint it, it's no longer raw, but raw wood, it really, really holds. So it's a great choice for that. And I'm using a little burnt umber to edge it, and this is what we end up with. I'm using a coffee can, but you can use any can you want. But I'm doing one for Christmas because I happen to store my tea bags in this container, so I thought it would be nice to keep it up with the seasons. And this is a free printout. It's going to be down below in my description box below my video, so you can print it up and cut it out and get it from there. Now I'm starting off painting this container with white. It was primer from Kilz, K-I-L-Z. And I'm just going to Mod Podge this on. Now I did want to make this look a little more festive, so I went ahead and I added some distressed looking red along the top and the bottom edges there. And then using the lid that came with this coffee can, I just went ahead and traced 3 circles with good thick cardboard in that shape of the lid for measurement. And now I'm going to glue some of the Dollar Tree towering wooden blocks in between this. Now I did this originally for height and for weight, but to be honest, when I made the lid before, I didn't do this. I just used 4 pieces of cardboard and glued them all together. Now, haste makes waste, you guys, because I was trying to save some time by not having to cut out 2 or 3 more circles of cardboard. And now I'm covering the edges with tape because there's that air gap in between, and it makes it really fragile and more difficult to work with. Now, it came up beautiful. It's sturdy when everything's said and done, and I love my lid. But would be easier and faster if you just cut out 2 or 3 more circles depending on how thick you know, how high, the height of the lid, how high you want yours to be. It would be easier just to do cardboard and skip the towering block altogether. It wasn't necessary. So now I want my top to be wood. I really want to go for this wood paneling, shiplap, palette kind of look. And I'm using the jumbo craft sticks from Walmart. And then the two ones on the end are medium craft sticks from the Dollar Tree, because the other ones were way too big. And I kind of like it when they're different widths too. I think that looks more rustic and more authentic. So I'm using spackling. For those of you that watch my videos, you've seen me do this trick before. Spackling is amazing in the UK, and someone came on from Belgium as well to tell me it's called polyfilla. So in the UK it's polyfilla, also in Belgium I guess, so I'm guessing around Europe it's called polyfilla. That's what I'm using here. Sorry, I don't know the name of it in every country, but you use it to fill in nail holes on your wall. So whatever you guys use for that purpose, that's what I'm using for this craft. And I did the edges to smooth it out, let it dry overnight, and now I'm just sanding the wood and the sides to smooth it down just a little bit. And I decide I want a green lid. I just want to jazz this up a little bit more, make it a little more festive for Christmas. So I'm going with a light green here. You can use any green that you want. I'm going to go with two color greens. I'm going to use a light one so I can distress the wood to show a little bit of wood and make it look rustic and farmhouse. And then I'm going to add some of that forest green paint later and dry brush it on just to give it a little bit more depth and contrast. And I sealed the entire container with a clear matte varnish spray paint. This time I'm going to use one of those Dollar Tree little wood pieces you get. I actually think it might be birchwood, like little mini birchwoods there for the lid, because I want to imitate the feeling of a Christmas tree trunk and the greenery of the Christmas tree itself. And I'm just shading around the lid, dry brushing around the edge, and that's it. It came up so cute. I love this craft. You're going to need a bath mat from the Dollar Tree and a cylinder shape. Now I chose a coffee can, and that's the brand I'm using. Kirkland's also makes metal cans, and you can buy that on Amazon. You can also shop around and look for a container that you would like from the Dollar Tree. I liked this DIY so much that I ended up making a smaller one with the leftover piece using a large tomato can. So I just think they're so cute. Next, I'm taking some masking tape because it's cheap, easy, and fast, and it works. And I'm going to wrap these cans up, and that will create a surface that the hot glue will stick to, and then the bath mat will stick to that. And I've never had anything fall apart, so I can vouch by it. I think you'd probably get away with other tapes as well. Just make sure that the surface is kind of porous and it looks like it's going to be friendly to both. You know, your tape's going to stick to the metal and the hot glue will stick to the bath mat because it's sticking to the tape, that kind of thing. You want to make sure everything's hitting the mark there. You might want to do a little test run if you're going to use a different kind of tape. And I'm just wrapping this up, and it folds really easy on the inside too. So I don't really have to add the tape on. I realize when I'm doing this, I don't really need the tape on the inside. I just do a little bit of hot glue, and it's enough to tack it down, because once I put the greenery in, that's going to hold it as well. And there's my small tomato can that I made. It's my little friendly, it's a team effort here, you guys. I just think it's so cute. I love the Dollar Tree bath mats. I can think of so many fun DIYs for them. This is just the beginning. But there I am. I'm just going to put some greenery in it. This is going to go in my bathroom. If you have farmhouse boho or any kind of modern look, this is a great way to get a high-end fast planter just to put some greenery around your house. And the last step is to add a little bit of paint with my paint pen, and we're all done. I had to include this one because you can use any can for this, but it would also make a super cute big can craft. I did that where I just painted it, distressed it, put the little bunny on, And then I took these beads, I painted them like a cream color. You could just use wood beads now, and I dry brushed them with pink and cream. They looked so pretty. Then I took one of the Dollar Tree foam eggs and I painted it the same color and then just speckled it with little black speckles, and that's going to be at the end of my beads. So I used Dollar Tree twine to thread these and then glue the end into the egg, and I'm giving you tips on what else you can use in the video, but I just used the Dollar Tree twine. And then I took these florals and I filled up the can. If you don't have them, I'm telling you, you can go outside and look for some florals. You can actually dry them upside down and use dried florals. But without a doubt, though, this is one of my favorite can crafts. I saw this super cute craft from Wayfair, but look at that price. So here's a free printable I created to try and catch the energy of that. And I'm using a coffee can. Someone called me the queen of coffee cans on Instagram. Thank you for that. So I took this can outside and I gave it a coat of primer. And the colors that I wanted to use are the cheaper acrylic paints from Apple Barrel, and I knew they weren't going to adhere. So I went ahead and used a primer and paint Rust-Oleum mix there so that the acrylic would have something to grab onto, and it worked out really well. I'm going for this color here for my first base color, and I've also talked about this in previous videos. If you want a look, a certain color, you'll often find that it's a blend of many different colors to get that final result. It's never just one color. And it's like your hair. Your hair has many different colors in it, but you'll look at it and go, oh, someone's brown or brunette or blonde or red. There's actually a lot of colors going on in there to create that one color, and paint's no different. So I always start usually with a minimum of 3 different paints to get one look. So here I did that color blue, and then I used the purple. You can see it on the palette right next to it there. Add a little bit of the pavement color by Apple Barrel because I do want to get those undertones that make it look a little antiqued, but I don't want to get carried away on the distressing. And then I want to get a little bit lighter because this is a spring craft. So I'm using a violet color. Any violet color will do just for the final. And that one, you know, my brush is a little damp, so it kind of gives it that cloudy look, which I really like. And then it shows all the other colors through it. So the next step is I'm cutting this. I don't want to tear it. I don't want to even antique around the edges of this label. I really want it to be clean like the craft we saw in the picture. And I'm going to use Mod Podge, of course. I got a little carried away with the Mod Podge. It's okay. I ended up doing the entire container right there and then putting the label on because I got a little carried away. That's all right. So now I'm just picking out of my florals some lavender here. And I don't know, thank goodness, I had the fortitude. I don't know what made me do it. I've never done it before, but I thought I should film with a second camera to the side just in case something happens one day. Well, I lost the footage where I kind of wound up a pool noodle there and used it for foam, but we got a side view here. It's beautiful. Let me know what you guys think, but I love this. Y'all probably recognize this. This is a coffee can. I'm using pewter gray, granite gray, and black, 3 colors, and I'm doing an aged metal to be clear. I'm not doing galvanized. That's a different technique, and you're going to see me doing a different technique than you would do if you wanted to galvanize it. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the pewter gray on because you got to knock down that shine. And there you'll need the pattern for the spout. And I'm showing you what the pattern looks like more or less. Make sure you measure it up against your coffee can so it fits nice and snug as possible. I'm using Brilliant Aluminum by Krylon. Now, I do want to recommend, this is a blotting technique, and this has been around forever. I did a set of countertops years ago using this technique. But if you want to do aged metal or galvanized metal, just like wood, you got to start with black poster board. I recommend that you do, but This is a great technique for aged metal. Now, if you want galvanized metal, you need to go one step further and draw those little amoebas on it, but great technique for aged metal. There it is. It looks excellent. So what you're going to do here is find something stiff. This is a really thick, stiff paper towel roll, the center. You can use anything round, and you're going to gradually curl your poster board, because if you go too fast, you're going to get creases, and that's going to give it away that your craft piece is fake. So you can see me now gradually going down smaller. And the reason you can't use small real quick, again, is because you'll get a crease. So you start with a bigger roll, then a smaller roll, until finally you can glue it to where you want it to be without any creases. And I just hot glued mine. That worked fine. And if you plan on trying any of these crafts, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any suggestions. I always love hearing from you guys. And on the bottom where it's going to meet the can, you're going to need to bend it just a little bit. Don't worry if it tears, because you're not going to see it, but you need to ease it up a little bit so it can lay flush and flat with your can. So now I'm making the handle. I roll it first and then I press it down to make it flat, but I do double up on the poster board, because if you do just one layer poster board, it's going to look too thin and look fake. And I'm doing the same process where I'm just slowly creasing it, slowly rolling it, so that we don't get any creases or any wrinkles. Perfect. Now I'm just doing the exact same process as I did with the can, because it has to match, of course. I'm going to do it to the spout and to the handle. So you're going to see me do about 4 to 5 different layers of paints, with the pewter gray, black, then the light gray, then the pewter gray again. And they're never completely drying in between. They're all kind of blending in. But anyway, nature in general tends to be multidimensional, and it's the same thing with metal. If you guys just do 1 or 2 layers of paint, trust me, you're going to be unhappy. It's not going to look real, and everyone's going to know it's fake, and you're going to wonder what you did wrong. So it's a lot of work, but it's fun. Crafting is fun. It's relaxing. And if you do all of the different layers, you're going to get a very believable, very authentic result. Final trick to doing faux metal or faux aged metal is you always have to add an iridescent silver on top. And it doesn't matter what color iridescent or pearlescent or whatever. And you use paper towels. That works great. Don't do a sponge, because you'll end up with air bubbles and little square marks, and again, you'll be unhappy. So stick with a crumpled up paper towel, crumpled up Kleenex. Kleenex leaves hair behind. Use a paper towel. You'll be happy. And just add that iridescence all over where you painted, and you're heading in the right direction. It's gonna look good. And as I mentioned in previous videos, big fan of the carbon paper because it's ink. And back in the day, they were using mostly ink, some paint, but I think I read somewhere it was mostly ink. So I'm a big fan of carbon paper and the ink look. And also, you guys, I always, whenever I can, just put the paper up to the computer screen and trace out the words, because invariably, no matter how careful you trace out your words, even when you print them up, you're going to need to make corrections when you finally lift up that paper. So it's a waste of ink for me. Anyway, that's my opinion. You guys want to print it out, you can. But I always end up having to make corrections anyway. So I just save the ink and trace it right off the computer screen, and it works great. I'm using E6000 and it works this time. And of course, make sure you are generous with the hot glue and don't worry if it shows because you're not going to see it. Now I've got a water can out in my garage. It's not cute like this at all. I mean, it's actually like a modern day regular old water can and it's rusted and old. And so I use that as a template or guideline for what this should look like if I'm trying to get it to look real. And I've decided to go ahead because I want it to look old and corrode it. So here I am, I'm trying to figure out how to cover the seam or how to add some more realism, and I try like a wire like this and I absolutely not. So I end up thinking, aha, spackling, and that works like a charm. Oh my gosh, it was pretty much dried up and old and I made it work. I added water. It worked great. I go ahead and I fill in all the seams where the spout is, where the handle is, everywhere there is a seam, even up on the spout area where I glued the poster board together and there's a seam. I put some spackling in there. Works great. Now you could use caulking, I'm sure. You could use silicone, nail filler, any kind of filler you have at home. And I will say one thing, the spackling added so much strength that I actually forgot this thing was fake at one point when I was taking pictures of it, and I picked it up from the handle and it didn't break or anything. It just picked up, but it was amazing. So if you want extra durability, go for the spackling. And I just remembered as I'm watching this video, I did not use E6000 for the handle, which is even more remarkable that I could pick it up and it didn't break off. That says a lot for the spackling because I'm pretty sure without that spackling that handle would have come off. But apparently I have to tell you now that, hot glue for the handle is enough. Because I remember at the time thinking, this is for decorative purposes only. I won't be carrying it around. And then I went and I picked it up. So, yep, there I go with the spackling. Like I said, if you have something like that, I'm positive caulking would work. In fact, I have that too. So I thought, well, if the spackling doesn't, soften up with water, I'm just going to use caulking. It would have worked the same. And of course, I'm painting it with the pewter gray to get it to match. And I'm just going to go through the process now of aging it and getting it to match. And here's where we are right now. So I'm adding the iridescent silver. And I choose chocolate sprinkle for this because, believe it or not, that actually looked more like rust than the burnt umber this time. And I just used a little Q-tip. And everywhere where the metal would have been fused together, just like my water can outside, I rusted it. And I start my process of making everything look corroded and old and rusted and used. No, I thought I was so smart using those little pearl buttons for fake nails, but I've actually seen a couple YouTubers doing this, so it's not, it's not an original idea. A lot of people can see the use for those. They're great for that. With foam board, I use carpet tacks. That's great because you can puncture foam board, but with other surfaces where you can't and you need it to have like a little nail in, these are great. And you can paint them whatever color you want them to be. And I'm just showing you I did all four. Look at that. It looks so awesome. You know what? I had a certain expectation for this craft, and I can honestly say it surpassed my expectations. So I was getting really excited because I'll tell you, up close and personal, you cannot tell this baby's not real. The very last and final detail was to do thin little ribbons of black everywhere at the deepest part of where the connection of real metal would be to add to the corrosion look. And we'll call this a wrap. Let me know what you think. Here's Here's a free printable I designed, and it's down below in my description box if you'd like to print it up. And of course, I didn't forget you coffee lovers. I made one for you too. This is a coffee can from Walmart. As far as I know, this is their store brand. Here is the paint I used. It's a paint primer mix. So I took it outside, gave it one coat, let it dry for about 3 hours. It was in the evening, so it was colder temperatures, so it was very, very dry. I noticed spray paint dries better when it's cold. And then I'm just going to give it one coat of the orange acrylic paint from Dollar Tree. These are those little styrofoam things that come inside packages. I don't know what they're called, but I thought, you never know if you're going to need this, something like this for crafting. So I kept mine, and I'm using it now to start my polka dots on this can. I start doing the back side before I put the front of the image on, because I didn't want to mess up the, it takes a long time sometimes for Mod Podge to dry. So I didn't want it to be tacky where my finger ruined it from holding it and trying to put the polka dots on. So I started with the back side of this, and I do have to use a brush to make more perfect circles and to touch up the center, because there's a little bit of air bubbles in it from tapping up and down with that foam piece. And now I'm taking some Mod Podge, and we're going to start gluing that front label down. Now this time I do a really thin, thorough coat of Mod Podge. I didn't go Mod Podge happy, although it didn't make too much of a difference the last time I did that. It's just you have to deal with more wrinkles, so definitely less is better. And you just saw me spray the back of that paper with a little bit of water. That's because the sponge I normally use to press my imagery down isn't as wet as I want it to be, so that's another quick way to get your paper wet. And anyway, I take a black painter's pen, and I go ahead and go around all of these circles because I do want more perfection. I mean, you definitely could make them where they're like I said before, kind of not perfect. That would still look cute, but that wasn't the look I wanted to go for. And I made a raffia bow this year. We're going to glue it on top, and that's it. I always love these coffee can crafts. They're some of my favorites, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Here's another one that I made for Christmas. It's a gingerbread theme, but I wanted to share this one because I actually ended up using an old belt that I had. I thought that was so cute, and I glued it on the rim of the lid, and then I opted to use a Christmas bell for the knob on top, and just some more ideas for you. So this first piece, which was my inspiration, this is $253.23, and I made it using coffee cans, a Frisbee, and pool noodles. And we're going to have a ton of wonderful surprises like that throughout the video, a bunch of high-end decor that you can make for pennies on the dollar. So the first thing that I did was I took the 2 coffee cans and I took masking tape and I taped them together. Then I measured and I cut the pool noodles down to the size that I wanted. And of course you could pile up coffee cans if you wanted to and do this as tall as you want or as short as you want. I chose to use 2. Then I measured and I went ahead and I cut my pool noodle in half, and I cut it in half on both sides. Here I'm using regular school glue, and I'm just covering this. So at first I do it this way where I'm brushing it on, and I realize as I keep doing this that I have to secure it a little bit better. So I end up grabbing an old headband right here and I put it around my coffee can, and that just helped hold everything in place because the glue was wet. You can't really use hot glue with styrofoam because it will melt. So you have to use cold glue for this. So you have to have a rubber band, a headband, something, anything stretchy, even an old sock if you cut it and just use the top half, just something that will hold your pieces on. Kind of messy, but it turned out so cute, so it was so worth it. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. I set it aside overnight to let it dry, and this is the next day. So I used a rubber band on the bottom because I really wanted this to lay flush to the coffee can so you couldn't see it. And then I'm just taking chalk paint. This is my homemade chalk paint, and I painted it, but you could use white acrylic paint. It would all work. And then While that was drying, I took the Frisbee outside and spray painted it white, and I'm going to use cold glue again to glue that down on top of the foam. I did use hot glue in the center to the coffee can and some super glue, and we made a beautiful succulent planter. I think this came up so high-end looking. Let me know what you think. If you had as much fun as I did today, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, here's another one I think you'll enjoy watching next.